When you look into a pool of water, if the water is still, you can see the moon's reflection. If the water is moving, then it is harder to see the true moon. Our minds are like that. When our minds are racing and thinking too much, we cannot see the true world. This was written by Jon J Muth in his story Zen Shorts. This week's art lesson, you are going to create an artwork in response to the theme of Zen. What is Zen exactly? Zen is a Japanese word that simply means meditation. The short meditations in this book make you think about your habits and your desires. They share a story about kindness, love, and forgiveness. What I love about this story are the beautiful watercolors and the very intriguing ink wash paintings. Let's take a look inside. We are introduced to a panda named Stillwater and 3 siblings. Not only is Stillwater a friend to the children, he is also a teacher, sharing important messages through his stories. Uncle Rai and the Moon. My Uncle Rai lived alone in a small house up in the hills. He didn't own many things. He lived a simple life. One evening he discovered he had a visitor. A robber had broken into the house and was rummaging through my uncle's few belongings. The robber didn't notice Uncle Rai, and when my uncle said hello, the robber was so startled he almost fell down. My uncle smiled at the robber and shook his hand. "Welcome, welcome! How nice of you to visit!" The robber opened his mouth to speak, but he couldn't think of anything to say. Because Rai never lets anyone leave empty-handed, he looked around the tiny hut for a gift for the robber. But there was nothing to give. The robber began to back towards the door. He wanted to leave. At last, Uncle Rai knew what to do. He took off his only robe, which was an old and tattered robe. "Here," he said, "please take this." The robber thought my uncle was crazy. He took the robe, dashed out the door, and escaped into the night. My uncle sat and looked at the moon, its silvery light spilling over the mountains, making all things quietly beautiful. Poor man, thought my uncle. All I had to give him was my tattered robe. If only I could have given him this wonderful moon. Next, Stillwater shares the story called The Farmer's Luck. There once was an old farmer who had worked his crops for many years. One day his horse ran away. After hearing the news, his neighbors came to visit. "Such bad luck," they said sympathetically. "Maybe," the farmer replied. The next morning the horse returned, bringing with it 2 other wild horses. "Such good luck!" the neighbors exclaimed. "Maybe," replied the farmer. The following day his son tried to ride one of the untamed horses, was thrown off, and broke his leg. Again the neighbors came to offer their sympathy on his misfortune. "Such bad luck," they said. "Maybe," answered the father. The day after that, military officials came to the village to draft young men into the army to fight in a war. Seeing that the son's leg was broken, they passed by him. "Such good luck!" cried the neighbors. "Maybe," said the farmer. The final story Stillwater shares with the youngest child. It is called A Heavy Load. 2 traveling monks reached a town where there was a young woman waiting to step out of her sedan chair. The rains had made deep puddles, and she couldn't step across without spoiling her silken robes. She stood there, looking very cross and impatient. She was scolding her attendants. They had nowhere to place the packages they held for her, so they couldn't help her across the puddle. The younger monk noticed the woman, said nothing, and walked by. The older monk quickly picked her up and put her on his back. He moved her across the water and put her down on the other side. She didn't thank the older monk. She just shoved him out of the way and left. As they continued on their way, the young monk was brooding and preoccupied. After several hours, unable to hold his silence, he spoke out. "That woman back there was very selfish and rude, but you picked her up on your back and carried her. Then she didn't even thank you." "I set that woman down hours ago," the older monk replied. "Why are you still carrying her?" I especially love this one because it really teaches us to forget things that have happened in the past and not let them bother us. Just to review, today your art assignment is to create art in the response to the theme of Zen, this idea of meditation, being calm. Also, we can think about the themes of kindness, love, forgiveness. Some common questions that I get are, can I use this material? Of course, you can use any materials in your home. Another common question I get is, what do I do? You need to open up the Google document, read all of the options, and choose one for your project. If you have any extra questions, you can come ask me in our Google Meet this week.